Hey folks, it's Stefan here. This is a tutorial video for GameMaker Studio 2, and I'm going to be showing you how to create a color gradient animated text in GameMaker language, like you see here in this game that I recently released called 8-Bitoids, which is a recreation of the Atari 2600 version of Asteroids. And I had to figure out how to make this animated text, which I thought would be a nice way to put the title, and I thought I would share how I did that with you. So let's go into GameMaker Studio. So first we're going to make a new project. We'll just call it gradient, and we're going to create an object. And I'm just going to make this a text object and add a create event to it. Now we need the text that we're going to display. Since this reminds me sort of the mega demo scene back in the 90s, I thought I would just use mega demo as the text. Now we're going to create a sprite from this text string, and we will set the origin to middle center. So for X and Y, we're just going to use the very middle of the room. So room width divided by 2, room height divided by 2. And finally, we need a variable to track whether we've actually rendered this or not. So has rendered sprite equals false. We only want to do it once. We only need to do it once. So we do need a room. We have the default room here, which is fine. I'm just going to change the size of this to 360 by 240. Just any size will work, but that's the size that we're doing. And I'm just going to put that text object in the room so that it is there and created. All right, now we need a draw event. And drawing is where we're going to do most everything here, but what we're going to do first is set up a temporary surface, and we're going to do all of our drawing of the text to that temporary surface and then turn that into a sprite. So this is kind of a dynamic way to do this. You could build a sprite in the sprite editor that was with a text that you wanted to treat as a sprite, but this way we can do any string that we want to do, and so you could use this in multiple places, multiple ways. All right, so like I said, we only want to do this once, so we're going to start off with a not rendered sprite, and I didn't type that right, rendered sprite. And at the bottom of that, we're going to make sure that we say that we have in fact done this, so we don't want to come back in here. Equals true. And we're going to set up our temp surface. So temp surface is surface create, and we're just going to do 300 by 50 because that's big enough for the 36-point font that we're going to use to hold all the string. So now we're going to say surface set target, and we're going to set our temp surface. So now we're saying instead of drawing to the application surface, draw to the surface that we just created. We're going to make sure that that surface is cleared. So we'll do draw clear alpha. We're going to make it black, set it to 1. Now we also need a temporary layer that we can draw into. So we're going to do layer create 0 text. And now we need a font. So let's set a font up. I have a font that I've downloaded that I used for the game that I thought was pretty cool called Dust Dot. So we'll just use that, but you can use any font that you want. So Dust Dot, and like I said, we're going to set that to 36. And that's how that looks. Okay, so now we're to draw set font. And that will be, oh, we forgot to change the name of it. So let's just do that, font Dust Dot. Okay, and now we should get autocomplete in here. And then we need to set the alignment. We want to draw into the middle of that region. So we're going to do draw set H align, FA center, and draw set V align, FA middle. So we're just drawing into the center of that region that we've created. And now we're going to do draw set color. And we're only going to draw this in white. We only need to establish an alpha value. And we're going to remove the background so that the only thing that has an alpha value is the actual text that's been rendered. Now we'll do the draw text. 150. Because of the line height, I need to set it at 35 instead of 25 to get it really to show up in the middle. You might have to tweak that in your own code. Okay, and then we're going to make a sprite. So sprite create from surface temp surface. So we've just drawn this text on the surface. Now we're going to take that and put it into a sprite. So our x and y is 0, 0, and then our width and height are 300 by 50, just like we had specified for the surface area. And remove back, we want to set to true because this is what takes the background color out and turns that into alpha 0 for every place that was background. So we want true. We're going to say no for smooth. And the x origin and y origin we're going to set to 150, 25 because that would be the middle of 300 by 50. Okay. And then we just need to do our cleanup. So we don't need the layer anymore. Destroy, temp layer. Oh. Well, I guess I could have just moved that down, but we'll just type it again. Layer destroyed, temp layer. And then surface reset, target. So this sets it back to the application surface because that's what we normally want to be drawing to, and that's what GameMaker needs to be drawing to. And then we can get rid of the surface that we had created. We don't need that anymore. And we've already set has rendered sprite equals to true, so we're just going to do one more thing, and we're going to set the sprite index of this object that we're in to the sprite that we just created. So that now we can do draw self. And when we run this, we will draw to the screen Mega Demo in white at the center of the image. And there we go. Okay. So that's part of it. Now, what we want to do is we actually want to draw that so that it's colored, and we want to use a fragment shader for that. But first, we got to set up some information to pass to the fragment shader. And one of the things that we need to know is what is the top and the bottom Y positions in the texture page of our sprite, because GameMaker could end up taking multiple sprites and putting them into the texture page, and yours doesn't necessarily fall at 0, 0. So we need to find that information out, and GameMaker provides that to us. So we're going to be able to pass that into the shader. So we're setting up a reference to a variable inside the shader. Gradient. Oh, we haven't created the gradient yet. Let's create the gradient quickly. We're just going to use the pass-through gradient initially. So we're just going to give it a name, shader gradient. So we don't need to do anything in there. We'll come back here, SDR gradient, and UUV. So that's what the variable is going to be called in the shader. And this instance variable is our reference to it that we're going to use in the draw method to pass in the information. And then we have U offset, which we're going to use to cause the actual animation. And you'll see how that happens. But basically, we're just going to be, instead of always using the same exact colors for the rows that we're drawing, we're just going to offset one each step, and then that will give us the effective animation. And then finally, we need offset equals 0, 0, because that's the variable we're going to update in our step. Okay, and now we are going to fix whatever this issue is. We forgot an equal sign. Okay, now going back to draw, we're just going to specify the shader here. It's not going to do anything right now. It's still going to just draw in white, but we'll make sure that it's working. So SDR gradient, so we're telling it use the shader SDR gradient. And now I need to provide those values, and this is where we're going to get that information about the texture page here. Sprite get UVS, sprite index, image index. So the sprite and the sub image in the sprite that we're interested in, we only have one sub image in our sprite. So let's just take a look at what this does. And this returns an array with the UV coordinates and other data for the texture of the sprite subimage on the texture page. And what we're interested in is the top and the bottom, because we're going to be animating the color to cycle vertically. Now, if you wanted to do horizontal, you would be interested in the left and the right. But we want top and bottom, so we're going to be interested in index 1 and index 3. So we have now got that information. We're going to pass that to the shader. Shader set uniform FUUV. And then we're going to pass in two float values, UV1 and UV3. And then we're going to pass the offset. Uniform F, U offset. And this is just the value offset. Now draw self stays the same, and then we're going to do shader reset so we don't keep using the shader after we've drawn our self. Okay. And the only other thing that we need to do right now is make sure that we clean up this sprite, because this sprite is being created dynamically, so it's not going to get cleaned up automatically. We just need to do sprite delete, text sprite. All right. And now let's just run this. It is going to use the shader, but it's not going to appear any different yet. And there we go, Mega Demo is still there. So the shader is not doing anything other than just passing through exactly what it has been provided. But now it's time to provide the details in the shader that we need. So first thing we need to do is get the two variables that we just passed in. So the first one, UUV, is going to come in as a vector2. So it's basically an array with two values. And the second is just a float. That's U offset. And now we need to use those. So what we want to do is we want to get a normalized version of our Y coordinate, because that's what we're going to use when we're building a HSV color to determine the hue. So it's going to be a value between 0 and 1, and then we're just going to pass that into a vector3 when we make our HSV color, so we don't have to figure anything else out. All right, so to do that, we have to take its actual position. So this is its position inside the texture page of the current pixel that we're drawing. And then we're going to subtract from that UUV 0, which is the top. So this actually puts us at 0. Divided this by, divide by UUV1, which is the bottom of our bottom Y in the texture page, minus UUV0. So that's the height. So this is going to be our actual position divided by the height, and that will give us a normalized Y value between 0 and 1. Now we're going to make the vector 3, that is our hue saturation value color. So vector 3, Y norm, and here we're going to put minus U offset. So this is what's going to give us the animation effect. So if we just kept Y norm, it would draw the gradient, but it would never change. So we're going to put this minus offset in here so that it cycles through. And then we want our saturation and values to be set to 1. We are going to get the alpha value from the current pixel, texture 2D, and we're just going to grab this from here because this is exactly what we want. And then dot A, so that is saying from the texture 2D, we get back a vector. We're going to take the A position of that vector, which is the alpha channel. And then we need to set GL frag color to a vector 4. And we're going to do that using a function called HSV2RGB, which we will pass our vector 3 into, and then we're going to tag the alpha onto that. So this HSV to RGB is actually coming from the shader, the guide to shaders that's here in the documentation, and this is a very extensive document on how the shaders actually work. And if you scroll down here a ways, we will eventually get to a rainbow shader, and this kind of does exactly what we're doing, although you can see it does it horizontally instead. But it is this method right here that's going to take that HSV color and turn it into an RGB color, which is what frag color needs to be. So we're not going to type that ourselves, so we're just going to grab that code and put it in there. Okay, and now if we run this, we will get a gradient text, but it won't be animated. Okay, there we go. So now to animate that, all we have to do is go back to our object text, and we're going to add a step event. And we're just going to be updating this by a very small value so that it cycles through. So offset plus equals 0.01. And then we want to make sure that this stays constrained between 1 and 0, but we actually want it to flip over. So we don't want to just use a clamp, because that would only prevent us from wrapping over. So offset equals offset greater than 1.0. So if it's greater than 1.0, set it to 0.0. Otherwise, just use the offset value. Okay, and now when we run this, we will get animated gradients. And there we go. So I hope this has been useful to you. I thought it was pretty fun to figure out. I had done surface drawing before, but I hadn't done anything with shaders. Obviously, I didn't do anything very complicated that wasn't already provided in the documentation, but I think it's a neat effect, and maybe you can find a way to use it. So if you liked this video, please click the like button, and I may be doing some other GameMaker videos in the future, so subscribe to the channel, or keep subscribed to the channel if you already are. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and I will try to respond to them in a timely manner. All right, well, thanks again for watching, and happy game making.